Good evening, everyone. So today we're going to finish our lesson on freedom of speech by talking about censorship in film, radio, and TV. We're also going to discuss the right to assemble. So getting right into censorship here, in the first half of the 20th century, films were submitted to local review boards. Remember, one of the ways you measure obscenity is based on community standards. How we judge the appropriate levels of films is directly correlated to the community in which it is produced and intended for distribution. In 1968, the Supreme Court ruled that a film could only be banned if it had been given a hearing in which it was judged obscene. The result of this is the film industry set up a system of self-regulation in the form of the rating system we see on every movie label, such as R, PG-13, and so on. Radio and TV, on the other hand, are the least protected by the First Amendment. No one has the right to use the airwaves without a license issued by the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC. And these permits are for a limited period of time and with stipulations on the content. We see a picture here of Howard Stern, a radio host who chalked up millions of dollars in fines for his foul language on his radio show. He later switched to satellite radio, which is not regulated by the FCC, so he couldn't be fined. We also see a picture of Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake on the bottom here. If anyone remembers the Super Bowl halftime show incident back in 2004, when a wardrobe malfunction caused for a display of nudity on live TV. That network was fined by the FCC as well. Now, just because we have the freedom of speech, do we have the freedom to offend? In 2006, a Danish newspaper printed a cartoon that depicted the Prophet Muhammad unfavorably and linked the Islamic faith to terrorism. Muslims across the globe were outraged. In the Muslim faith, any depiction of the Prophet or God is forbidden, so clearly those cartoons are offensive. There were protests in Muslim communities around the world, but the European editors felt it was their right to reprint the images. Limited U.S. media sources chose to reprint the cartoons, though some news channels provided links to them on their websites. Although this is an international example, this goes to show that just because something isn't legally regulated for censorship due to obscenity, there are some discrepancies on what should and should not be censored because it's offensive. Now we're going to talk about the right to assemble. The First Amendment states the right of the people to peacefully assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. This means that citizens can both talk to their government about their complaints, but also has the freedom to talk to each other about it too. The government requires permits for parades, sound trucks, and demonstrations so that authorities can control traffic and hopefully prevent riots. Freedom to demonstrate has been a major issue since 1977, when the American Nazi Party wanted to march in Skokie, Illinois, a community of large Jewish population, many of whom were Holocaust survivors. Although the community tried to stop the party from assembling, the American Civil Liberties Union defended their right to march, and the Supreme Court supported them as well. But on the other hand, we see Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested multiple times, not for holding civil rights marches, but for not having the correct paperwork and permits to support them. And this is because people disagreed with the civil rights movement so much, they made it impossible, almost impossible, for African Americans to obtain these permits. So although we may not always agree with the reasons of certain protests, as American citizens, our right to assembly is upheld. And that's all for today, and tomorrow we're going to be talking about the right to privacy.